Mr. President, yesterday morning, the monthly inflation report came out. Once again, inflation was well above the Fed's target rate of 2%. Overall, prices have risen by 17.6% since President Biden took office. 17.6%. And price hikes in certain categories are even worse. Groceries are up 20.9% over that same period. Gasoline prices up 54.8%. Electricity is up almost 25%, and rent is up 18%. Car repairs and maintenance are up 26.5%. And the list goes on. The President said the other day that Bidenomics is the American dream. Turns out that Bidenomics is more of a nightmare for the American people. Mr. President, President Biden likes to talk about giving American families, quote, a little bit of breathing room, end quote. But that is the exact opposite of what his policies have provided. Wealthy Democrats may not be concerned about a 20% increase in the cost of their groceries or a 54% increase in the price of gasoline. But for a lot of hardworking American families, those kinds of price increases have meant the difference between having that little bit of breathing room and having absolutely none. The Joint Economic Committee estimates that Bidenflation is costing American families $953 per month. $953 per month. Even at half that, inflation would be a massive burden on working families. How many families have put off needed home or car repairs, deferred a kid's braces, or eliminated a family vacation because they're paying hundreds of dollars more a month for their basic needs? And how many other families haven't even been able to pay for their basic needs thanks to the inflation crisis that the President helped create? It's no surprise that 65% of voters say that they had cut back on their non-essential spending, or that 52% of voters, more than half, said that they had cut spending on food or other everyday necessities. Or that 55% of voters say they're worse off financially under President Biden. Shouldn't come as any big surprise. And finally, 66% of Americans rate the economy as fairly bad or very bad. The fact of the matter, Mr. President, is Americans can't catch a break under President Biden. First, there was the worst inflation crisis in 40 years, a crisis that has been improved from its worst point, but is still very much with us. And now there are the heightened interest rates that the Federal Reserve was forced to put in place to help rein in this inflation crisis. You got higher inflation, higher interest rates. So now Americans are dealing not only with persistently high prices, they're also dealing with these sky-high interest rates on credit cards and mortgages and car loans, which are being driven in part by the Fed's rate hikes, which have been done in response to out-of-control inflation. The monthly mortgage payment on a single-family home has increased 19% since last year. A recent NBC News article reported, and I quote, "In late 2020, the monthly mortgage payment on a typical newly sold home was around $1,100 in principal and interest. It's now about twice that." Let me just repeat that, Mr. President. In late 2020, the monthly mortgage payment on a typical newly sold home was around $1,100 in principal and interest, and now it's about twice that. If the American dream is owning your own home, it's a dream that's become out of reach for too many Americans in the Biden economy. On the car buying front, Mr. President, Americans are facing loan rates last seen, as one article noted, during the Great Recession. And soaring credit card interest rates are making it difficult for Americans to afford their credit card bills, much less make progress at paying them off. And it's a situation not helped, of course, by the fact that many Americans have had to turn to their credit cards to help them get by under Bidenflation. Mr. President, it's been a rough 3 years for the American people. And I wish I could say that Americans could expect some relief. But with at least 1 year more on the President's time in office, I'm afraid that Bidenomics will continue to eliminate American families' breathing room for the immediate future. So much for the President's American dream. Mr. President, I yield the floor.